Hello, dear friend. Welcome to Healing Pages channel, the safe haven where every page you turn brings you gently back to yourself. There are wounds that never bleed, yet seem to quietly seep pain throughout a lifetime. There are memories no one else can see, no one else can touch, yet each time your heart stirs even slightly, they come flooding back, like silent waves crashing from within, pulling you down into a sea of nameless, tangled emotions. People often tell us to just move on or try to forget. But only those who have truly walked through the shadows know, trauma has little to do with whether we are strong enough to overcome. It has everything to do with how deeply our hearts have once been broken. And this book we're talking about today, The Body Keeps the Score, is not just a groundbreaking piece of science, it is a journey. A journey of healing, that begins not with solutions, but with understanding. Understanding pain, understanding a memory, and perhaps most of all, understanding yourself. This book has touched millions of lives. It has helped people find their way back, from the darkest corners of suffering to the quiet light of hope and peace. And in this video, we'll walk alongside those stories, those powerful insights from neuroscience, and the deeply healing practices the book offers. Maybe, just maybe, by the end of it all, you'll discover something simple yet profound. You are worthy of healing. Let's begin with the man behind this transformative work. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, an internationally respected psychiatrist, a pioneer in trauma research, and most importantly, a compassionate human being who has dedicated his life to walking alongside those in pain. For nearly 4 decades, Dr. Bessel has worked with war veterans, abused children, and countless others who felt disconnected from life, from others, and even from themselves. His work isn't confined to sterile labs or clinical data. He has stepped into real stories, real dreams, and real silence, the kind of silence that follows years of trauma too heavy to name. That's why his writing doesn't feel cold or technical like a medical report. It feels warm, human, and full of empathy. Reading his words is like having a wise, gentle voice speak directly to the part of you that's been hiding, hurting, and longing to be seen. The Body Keeps the Score is not just a scientific book. It's a spiritual companion. It's a mirror that reflects the pain you haven't found words for. And it's a quiet hand reaching out to you, saying, you're not alone. You should read this book if you've carried pain that you haven't been able to name. You grew up in a childhood that felt incomplete or unsafe. You often find yourself overwhelmed by emotions, quick to anger, quick to tears, or unable to feel anything at all. Or simply, if you want to understand yourself better, to live more fully, and to love yourself in a healthier, more tender way. What's beautiful is, you don't need a background in psychology to understand this book. Because what Dr. Bessel offers isn't complex jargon. It's gentle truth, truth that wakes up your heart, truth that every one of us deserves to hear, truth that begins the process of healing, from the inside out. What is trauma, and why can it happen to anyone? When we hear the word trauma, we often imagine something massive: war, violence, catastrophic accidents, devastating loss. We think of stories too large to fit into ordinary life. But in reality, trauma can come from things far smaller, moments so brief they may go unnoticed by others, but so deep they leave an imprint on our hearts. It can be the hug we longed for as a child, but were denied. A harsh word, spoken in passing, that carved itself into our sense of worth. Or the quiet loneliness of being abandoned in a room full of people, over and over, until we began to believe we didn't matter. Dr. Bessel once wrote, trauma can happen to anyone, even me, even you. Trauma does not discriminate. It touches the young and the old, the strong and the soft-hearted, the high achievers and those still trying to find their way. Because not everyone grows up in a world where feelings are heard, where pain is acknowledged, where comfort arrives in time and love is steady enough to be trusted. And trauma doesn't just live in the mind. It leaves traces in the body, in the shallow breath of panic, in the trembling hands when old memories resurface, in the racing heartbeat triggered by a scent, a sound, a shadow that echoes something once buried. It is not simply remembered. It is stored, deeply and wordlessly, in the body's tissues and nervous system. Even when the mind tries to forget, the body remembers. That's why one of the first, and perhaps most powerful things this book helps us do, is understand. To understand that the things we often call overreactions, meltdowns, or emotional outbursts are not sign of weakness. They are signs that the body is still trying to protect us, still responding to wounds it never had the chance to heal. To understand that we are not broken, we are just hurting. And the moment we begin to see our pain not as a flaw, but as a message from a deeper part of ourselves, is the moment true healing begins. Because healing doesn't start with fixing. It starts with understanding. It starts with compassion. And it starts with the brave act of saying to ourselves, I see you, I hear you, and I'm not going to run from you anymore. The journey into trauma, from understanding to healing. And now, together, we step into the heart of the journey of discovering what trauma truly is, how it shapes us, and most importantly, how we begin to heal. Rediscovering trauma, calling our pain by its true name. For a long time, symptoms like insomnia, panic attacks, or irritability after a painful experience were often dismissed. People were told they were too sensitive, overreacting, or worse, crazy. But everything changed when American soldiers returned home from the Vietnam War. They didn't just carry physical wounds, they carried nightmares, flashbacks, and invisible scars that refused to fade. That's when the field of psychology began to understand something far deeper. That what they were witnessing was not weakness, but trauma. And from that understanding, a new term emerged. PTSD means post-traumatic stress disorder, a condition triggered by events that overwhelm the human capacity to cope. War, abuse, accidents, loss, and even the quiet, invisible pain of a wounded childhood. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk was one of the pioneers in studying PTSD. But what sets him apart is that he didn't stop at describing symptoms. He dedicated his life to exploring the root of emotional injury, to truly understand the pain, and to discover how we can heal, not just through medication, but through reconnecting the mind and the body. The first part of his book is a powerful invitation to name our pain, to recognize that symptoms like fear, withdrawal, or emotional outbursts are not personal flaws. They're survival responses, imprinted in the brain to protect us. Healing begins, he says, when we realize there is nothing wrong with you. You are simply surviving something that once felt unbearable. The traumatized brain, when the body remembers what the mind forgets. One of the most groundbreaking insights in this book is this: trauma doesn't just live in memory, it lives in the body. When we experience a traumatic event, the central nervous system reacts with intensity, especially three key regions in the brain. Amygdala, the fear center, becomes hyperactive, constantly scanning for danger, even when we are safe. Hippocampus, the memory center, becomes disorganized, making the past feel like it's happening now. Prefrontal cortex, the reasoning and regulation center, goes quiet, making it hard to think clearly or stay calm. That's why a firework, a familiar scent, or even a light touch can trigger panic, because the brain misreads the present moment as a past threat. And the body? It remembers, too, through tight muscles, rapid heartbeat, shortness of breath, insomnia. Over time, prolonged trauma can even manifest as chronic illness, because the nervous system has forgotten how to relax. But here's the hopeful truth: while the body remembers trauma, it can also relearn safety. Healing, then, is not about erasing the past. It's about learning to live peacefully with it, knowing that it no longer controls you. Childhood trauma, when hurt begins before we can even name it. There's a truth many overlook. So much of our trauma doesn't begin in adulthood. but in childhood. In the years when we were too young to make sense of what was happening, but not too young to feel its impact in our hearts. Dr. Bessel helps us see that childhood wounds can quietly shape how we love, how we trust, how we see ourselves as we grow. He tells the story of Maria, a 15-year-old Latina girl who had been physically and emotionally abused, moved through over 20 foster homes since the age of 8, and carried a deep belief that she was worthless. She withdrew from others, refused help, and attempted to end her life multiple times. Maria's story is not rare. Children who grow up in unsafe environments often develop protective mechanisms like emotional numbing, disconnecting from feelings to avoid pain, aggression or defiance, lashing out to defend themselves, self-blame, believing they are the reason for the harm they experienced. And without healing, these early cracks follow them into adulthood, affecting their work, relationships, and sense of self. But here's what's beautiful: the child's brain is incredibly resilient. With the right support, a safe environment, a kind listener, and evidence-based therapy, even the deepest wounds can begin to mend. Trauma triggers when pain becomes part of everyday life. If childhood pain lays the roots, then adulthood shows us just how deeply trauma takes hold. Sometimes, the people who seem fine on the outside are still fighting silent battles within. Take Tom, a Vietnam veteran, husband, father, with a stable job and a seemingly normal life, but every night, the war returned in his dreams. Fireworks on the 4th of July made him panic. A loud noise could send him into a spiral. This is called trauma reactivation. When a sound, a smell, a scene triggers the same fear and helplessness as the original trauma, those affected may feel disconnected from themselves and others, overreact to small things, or spiral into anxiety, depression, or the haunting sense that they don't belong anywhere. But Dr. Bessel gently reminds us, these are not signs of failure, but of a nervous system still trying to stay safe. And when we truly understand that, we no longer see ourselves as damaged, but simply as people in need of healing. The path to recovery, healing is possible, and it's real. If the entire book is a walk through the darkness of trauma, then this final part is where the light breaks through. Dr. Bessel shares recovery tools that are not only backed by science, but infused with compassion and humanity. He explains that talking alone is often not enough because trauma disconnects the brain's ability to link memory with words. So healing must involve both the mind and the body. Through approaches like trauma-sensitive yoga, gently reconnecting with your body and rebuilding a sense of internal safety. EMDR therapy, using eye movements to help pre-process traumatic memories without reliving them. Mindful breathing, grounding the body in the present, even if the past feels close. Creative therapies, like art, journaling, and drama, giving a voice to what words cannot say. Most importantly, healing means helping survivors reclaim control over their bodies, their stories, their lives. Because trauma often strips us of agency. But when we learn to listen to our body, regulate our emotions, and trust ourselves again, that's when true recovery begins. And so, through 5 powerful chapters, The Body Keeps the Score does more than explain trauma, it opens the door to hope. A journey of healing that is neither simple nor quick, but entirely possible, if we are patient, gentle, and loving with ourselves, because healing isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about remembering, with grace, and learning to live forward, with strength, softness, and the deep knowing that we deserve to be whole again. The profound messages from the book. As you close the final pages of The Body Keeps the Score, there is a quiet, yet powerful truth that begins to echo in your heart. You are not alone on this journey through the invisible wounds of life. With language that is gentle, honest, and deeply human, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk doesn't just present scientific knowledge. He offers something far more precious, understanding, and with it, a warm, unwavering hope. One of the most important messages repeated throughout the book is this: anyone can be traumatized. Me. You. Your family. Your friends. Your colleagues. Trauma leaves more than emotional scars. It reshapes the body, disrupts our physiology, and even weakens our immune system. And this message, simple as it sounds, holds immense healing power. Because when you truly absorb it, you begin to understand. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not crazy. The sleepless nights, the anxiety, the emotional overwhelm, the difficulty connecting with others, these are not signs of failure. They are natural consequences of something deeply unnatural that you had to endure. And in healing, there is no rush. You don't need to be strong all at once. You don't need to get over it by tomorrow. What you need is time. Time for your body to rest. Time for your heart to be heard. And time to slowly, gently learn how to live peacefully with the past instead of constantly trying to outrun it. What I love most about this book is that it doesn't speak in commands. It speaks in companionship. Like a quiet friend sitting beside you in the dark, placing a hand gently on your shoulder and saying, "You've been hurt, but you are still worthy. You are not broken. You just need healing. You are not alone. And you deserve a peaceful life." To me, The Body Keeps the Score is not just a book. It is a mirror that reflects the hidden corners of your emotional world. It is a soft light shining into the room of your memory. It is a gentle whisper to every fragile soul who feels lost: you can begin again, even from the place you once thought was the end. You don't need to have survived a great tragedy. You don't need a complicated diagnosis or a dramatic backstory. The Body Keeps the Score is a book for anyone who has ever felt hurt in silence, who has ever tried to be strong without anyone noticing, who has ever whispered to themselves, "I don't know how to keep pretending everything is fine." You may see yourself in the story of Tom, the soldier who made it home, but never left the battlefield inside his mind. Or in the eyes of Maria, the young girl who couldn't believe in her own worth after a childhood of abandonment and pain. Or perhaps you'll find yourself in the quiet, patient pages of Dr. Bessel's words, where he reminds us, again and again, that the body never forgets, but it can learn how to forgive. And if you've ever asked yourself the question, can healing truly happen? This book answers gently, but firmly, yes. Not only is it possible, it is something you deserve. And if you're still here, listening to this moment, I believe there's a part of you, maybe small, maybe quiet, that's longing to be soothed. And if that's true, then don't hesitate to find this book. Not because you need to be fixed, but because you deserve to know that you don't have to be perfect to be loved. If today's video brought you even a little comfort or clarity, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel, because your support helps me continue bringing more healing books, more gentle wisdom, and more light into this space. And if you've carried pain that never got named, if you've endured in silence for far too long, leave a comment below. You don't have to explain. Even just a single heart emoji is enough for me to know you are here, you are trying, and you are not alone. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll take another small, steady step together, on this journey of healing, a path that may not always be easy, but is always, always worth walking.